This is a new voice for a new Scotland.
I think when the question was asked, should there be another one?
Yes.
It's not a case of should there be another one. The SNP is the largest party here. The most people voted for them more than anyone else, just in the same way that the most people voted for Theresa May in 2017 general election, and we're following that for the UK. So if most of the people of Scotland voted for the SNP on the basis of what they said, then that is what the people of Scotland want. Also, this argument, and this really winds me up, this argument that the SNP are the only people in Scotland that want independence is absolute rubbish. There are Tories, there are Labour, there are Lib Dem, there are loads of Greens as well, there are loads of just independent Scottish people that want independence for Scotland. So if you're looking at the fight for independence, I agree. I don't agree with the SNP approach. I don't think they should be basing it around Europe. I think that's a conversation that an independent Scotland has to have on its own once it gains its independence, because we have to respect the fact that there are a lot of people here that actually want independence from both unions. I can't understand why nobody can understand why you would want independence. It's a normal thing. Countries are independent all over the world.
Afternoon, folks. We started there that we clicked on question time as a jog your memory, I suppose, as to who I am. The lady who ranted about a year ago on the show got quite a little bit of coverage throughout social media. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Diane, and I am one of the original 45%. Yes, voters from 2014, activist, Facebook keyboard warrior, and as my mother would say, and you can see from that question time rant, overall just a general gobshite. This afternoon, I volunteered to take part in the rally brought to you by the Round Table, TRT, in order to bring you some information on the Digital Covenant, but mainly the idea behind the rally was a feeling for the need to bring people together, and certainly to bring ideas together. There is so much going on in the movement right now, and today we should have been in Elgin and hopefully in sunshine and marching. That was our AUOB calendar scheduled march for this year, but unfortunately due to lockdown, that's no longer happening. So the guys at TRT alongside guys at Digital Covenant had the great idea to get as much people involved in the movement to try and put the messages out there of all the positive things that people are doing. So today we have tried to gather together a selection of people to talk about the various different things that we could look forward to in the future of an independent Scotland, to speak about the things that we need to plan towards for an independent Scotland, and also to speak about the various things that you're talking about out there. We can see on Facebook that there is lots and lots going on. We've got the launch of 2 new independence parties, I think, today for March 2021, all with the very serious pledge of trying to support, encourage the SNP to deliver on the manifesto pledges they keep making to us about getting independence. Now, I'm sure we can all agree that the one thing we would love to see on a manifesto from the SNP in 2021 would be a majority vote for the SNP is a vote to end the union, and that would start those negotiations. Now, I know that there's the pursuance of Section 30 and people have various issues and questions about that. There are many of us, including myself, who don't believe that Section 30 is necessary. That brings us on to campaigns this week from 12 Teach, who you'll be hearing from later. They've been running a Plan B week this week. Lots of people in the movement calling for Plan B. We have Peter A. Bell, the very well-known indie blogger, calling for #ScottishUDI. So there's all sorts of things going out there, and we wanted to try and bring some of that to you today. We've so much talent in the movement, and so many people that have done research on really important things over a long period of time that will contribute to the independent Scotland that we build together. And I'm sure that you could all agree that by bringing people together, we can, in fact, achieve independence. So this afternoon, we've got a selection of people. We have Pat Leon from the Alliance for Independence to tell us all about the grassroots Yes movement party they're trying to build. Unfortunately, no one from ISP. We did try. Sorry about that, guys. We also have Ruth Watson from Scotland the Brand. She sat down and had a chat with us about her grassroots campaign and also why, you know, she would really, really love for us to get involved with that. We had David Younger in for a wee chat about universal basic income and the things that we need to look at with that. And we've also got some members from across the movement giving their personal perspectives on the day. All rounded up by 12 heads and various other bits and pieces that we can gather together. And we hope that you really, really enjoy the afternoon. I'm sure the one thing that you can all agree on today is that after 300 years of a union, we all need to make our own decisions now. We need to pull together. We need to use our talents. We need to use our determination, and we need to use that together. I don't know if you're aware of all the different things that are going on in the movement, and today we are only giving you a selection of them. But up until about 3 weeks ago, I wasn't aware of the fact that there are around 4 constitutions floating around for a suggestion for a new independent Scotland. I know more of Mark McNaugh's than anybody else's, but having these information in different places, written by different people, with no one knowing what it's about, we really want the Covenant team to try and pull you all together in that and pull all of it together. So the idea behind today is to try and pull everyone together and encourage them to join us by signing the Digital Covenant and automatically giving themselves a place in the Digital Assembly. Now, the idea behind the Assembly, as I say, is gathering all the ideas together. But if we had one place where we took every organisation, just for example, in the Indie movement, and we took every organisation and we said to them, you know, come, sign up to here. The one thing you have to commit to is an Indie Scotland, nothing else, and put all your ideas in there. Put them to the people. All the people sign, one place, one assembly, one place where we can look at the ideas, we can discuss these ideas, we can amend them, we can throw out the ones we don't like, we can keep the ones we do like, we can find people that have shared values, we'll find areas where we can join together on shared priorities, but more than anything else, with having all of us in one place, what we can do is that we can agree on things and arrive at consensus and deliver those to the Scottish Government, whoever that Scottish Government may be. And in that sense, we can deliver democracy to ourselves. If we were to reach the target of hashtag 3 million signatures the Digital Covenant have set, very ambitious, I know. However, that target really needs to be reached, because if we do, that is the majority of Scotland. It's the majority of Scotland in one place at one time, able to get that one message out there. And after all this time of us dealing with all these issues in these fragmented groups that we have, we're not getting our overall message together, and we're not managing to work out as a country what it is that we want. So the Assembly idea and the Digital Covenant, and what leads to essentially the blockchain democracy, is that idea. And we are so lucky that we've had people in the movement that have given up their time, coders, volunteered, some of them you'll hear from today, to do this work over years. And the reason they did it was because they heard that this was what the movement wanted and this was what the movement needed. And now we have it. All we need to do is take it, grasp it, and use it. So I urge you folks to look at the website. I urge you folks to take a look at the live signing demo that is coming up from the team over the next week or so, I think. We'll wait and see for that, but we'll certainly put it out there. But more than anything else, we would urge you to sit back this afternoon, have a drink if you've got nice weather where you are, sit in the garden, chill out, and listen to all the interesting things that are coming your way in an independent Scotland. So first up, we've got Ruth Watson, who is here to tell us, or was here to tell me, all about the Keep the Scotland Brand campaign and how essentially that is a grassroots campaign. So it's something that we can all listen into and that we can all take on board and that we can all take forward together. I hope you enjoy it. And I'd like to say welcome to Ruth Watson from Keep Scotland the Brand. She's come to talk to us all this afternoon and tell us a little bit more about her campaign. Welcome, Ruth.
Hi, thanks for having me. Well, Keep Scotland the Brand was started a couple of years ago and it is not my campaign. It's my idea, and I spearhead it, and I run it, and I do it on a completely voluntary basis from my kitchen table. Although at the moment I'm in our small cubbyhole office. It's our campaign, because without everybody backing it, without the remarkable, overwhelming support that the campaign has, not only from industry but from folk right across Scotland, from Dumfries and Galloway up to Shetland, there's people supporting the campaign and the ethos of the campaign. So it's not my campaign, it's our campaign.
Fantastic. So how many supporters do you have from the public? Do you have, and how do you register your supporters? Are they subscribers? Are they activists? How does it work?
It's actually one of those remarkably and delightfully anarchic situations where I have no idea. It's kind of like releasing butterflies into the world. So what I do know is that sometimes, some months, my Twitter account has a 1.2 million reach. So
wow, that's quite something.
Somebody somewhere is paying attention. I'm a bit of a techno numpty. All I know is to click the analytics and I get some information coming up. I know that it is an international campaign because I get people from across the world contacting me. The other day I had somebody from Hong Kong sending me photographs of Scottish produce, Scottish whiskies, clearly marked as Scottish whiskies in a Hong Kong airport. And there's a gentleman I know, actually one of the people who helped inform this campaign. I was lucky enough many years ago to live in Malaysia, and I had a friend who he had a multi-million-dollar budget for he was the buyer for the whole of Malaysia and Singapore for a super, and he loved Scotland's brand, and so that was why when I saw that Scotland's name for quality and Scotland's distinctive name for its products was being sort of smothered by the Great British campaign, and then when I also saw the threat to many of our products and our special food names from, for example, American deals, and that was evidenced in the Canada-Japan trade talks 2 years ago, when over 3,000 European Union products from across the continent of Europe were put forward for special legal name protections within those deals. The UK government did not submit one name from across the whole of the United Kingdom for protection. So currently we've got a trade deal as part of the EU. Currently we have a trade deal with Canada and with Japan, but the legal precedent has been set and not one of our food names is protected in Canada or Japan. So going forward with Brexit negotiations, the US is very clear that they do not like place of origin food labels, and that they want the right to call, for example, for them to make their own shoddy examples of imitation Stornoway black pudding, for example. And so we would lose those legal protections. And a reputation lost is very hard to regain. And once trust is gone with our produce, it's very hard to get our reputation back. So Keep Scotland the brand was born because I was paying attention to the detail of what was going on around me, and seeing what those within the industry were saying. And I thought, actually, what we really need is to have a grassroots movement, because it's very difficult for industry, and it's very difficult for those trying to make the case for, you're trying to make an argument with, for example, the supermarket saying, could you please label our Scottish strawberries as Scottish? It's very hard to make that argument if you have no evidence behind it. But when you get thousands of people emailing supermarkets and putting their voice to a campaign, then it helps the industry and it helps the sector. And I think that Scotland is actually really remarkably aware. Many Scots are very conscious of where their food comes from, of the politics that's underpinning the economic hit that many of our producers are going to face.
Yes, of course, with Brexit. And then also, as you were saying there, with the UK government in this trade deal where there wasn't the protections. And of course, I presume that this is a power that the Scottish government don't currently have to keep Scotland the brand themselves, because these are reserved to Westminster. Is that correct?
Well, it's very interesting. There's a bit of dancing between raindrops. So food labelling is reserved to Westminster. But I've just actually been watching evidence given to the Scottish Select Committee. And if you hang on one second, just to cut for a second, I will find the exact quote because my eyes lit up at this. So food labelling is reserved to Westminster. So the labelling on the packages of the produce that we get, whether our strawberries are called Scottish or Great British strawberries, that's down to Westminster. However, I've just been listening to evidence given by James Withers, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Scotland Food and Drink, and he was giving evidence to the Scottish Select Committee, and I didn't know this, and he was saying that the reality is, other than trade negotiations, the development of brand and export opportunities are devolved. So it shows that we have got the potential to develop and market Scotland's brand. And that is what the industry wants. There's reams of evidence and market research to show that whether you're talking about it Scotland or in England or across the world, Scotland's name is good for business. Local provenance is good for global sales. And whether you're looking at New Zealand or Canada, those domestic markets work really hard to build their own brand. The New Zealanders got really exciting stuff happening with their brand development. And Scotland's way up there with our recognizable brand. So there's a huge drive within Scotland. We know how much our brand is worth.
Yes.
One in six Scots are employed in a food and drink sector, but it's not just about food and drink. You're talking about Scotland's international reputation in veterinary skills, in engineering, in so many ways. Our reputation is really up there. We're a nation that punches high. So we have a lot to sell and market, not only within our own communities, but to export as well. And it's really crucial. And I'm really heartened by the amount of people who do get in touch with the campaign. And like I say, I mean, I do it from my kitchen table. So if I'm ever late answering to a tweet or a tweet message or an email, I apologize. But it's one of those things that is a labor of love, just because I think it really matters. And once we've lost it, it's gone.
Yes, exactly.
I refuse to watch something which is so valuable. I refuse to watch it go without a fight.
And do you get a lot of support from the corporate side? And is there much lobbying goes on in the Scottish government on this issue, do you know?
I am very aware that there are some extremely significant figures in business who are quietly supportive of the campaign behind the scenes, because I can say things that they can't. While I am guided by professionalism through gleaned from years of journalism and PR, I am not restrained in the way in which people who have to actually officially deal with such matters are. So every now and then, the ability just to say what I think and say it sweetly with charm and direction is useful, I think, to some within the industry.
Okay, fantastic. So after all of this work you've already done, and I presume I would know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What are the main priorities for the Keep Scotland the Brand campaign over the next 1 to 2 years?
To be honest, what I would really like to see would be for me not to be needing to do this. Like I say, I mean, I do this on a voluntary basis, and I would really like for it not to be necessary for me to do this. I would like for the battle to be won. The battle to be won so that, of course, Scotland's brand is respected. Of course, Scotland's brand can be developed and shared and enhanced. And of course, we can go on with the business of people on their day-to-day business, going to the shops and looking for Scottish milk and finding it easily, looking for own brand Scottish butter. That was on the shelves a year and a half ago, and it just disappeared within a week. I saw it happen. I had a conversation about this with the manager in my local shop.
And what was the response?
Oh, they were horrified. I said, where's the bar gone? I went, oh, where has it gone? Well, we'll need to have a look at that. Now, I know that senior management in many supermarkets are restrained with what they can, constrained by what they say. But I have communications from fairly senior figures within some supermarket chains telling me that they are lobbying behind the scenes for Scotland's brand to be prominent. One supermarket manager said to me that he knew that he could sell 3 times the amount of produce if it was labelled Scottish and not Great British. He said,
wow.
And he said, I know that my managers know this because I keep telling them. So for the supermarket managers at a senior level to be removing Scottish produce from the shelves is not one which has been done for economic reasons.
Not at all, not at all. And do you think that possibly do you know if there has been any research into whether more independent retailers in these areas would actually help with the brand or not?
The research that I have seen indicates that independent retailers tend to sell Scottish produce in Scotland because it sells so much better. I was speaking to the manager who is the buyer for fresh fruit and vegetables, or he was at that point, for one supermarket chain. And he said, this is madness. I don't even put soft fruit on the shelves until the Scottish soft fruit season starts. I mean, that's it. And actually in England, the market research done, shows that people will actively choose to buy Scottish produce if they see it on the shelves because they, quite rightly, in many cases, recognise that it is a product which is coming from a cleaner environment and will have a good flavour and quality they can trust.
So in that respect, in terms of the campaign for independence for Scotland itself, do you see that independence would be necessary in order to keep Scotland the brand in the longer term?
Well, the Keep Scotland the Brand campaign is strictly politically neutral. I mean, that is something which is right across, right from the get-go.
Okay.
I made really clear that Keep Scotland the Brand takes no political stance and it is a politically neutral campaign. However, as is often the case with most people, my personal politics are actually a matter of record and Hansard because in order to be completely transparent, I've made clear both on the website and elsewhere that Keep Scotland the Brand grew out of a conversation that we had between Yes Kirriemuir and Yes Forfar. We were just kind of spraffing and talking about this. I was having one of my usual rants about how worried I was about Scottish agriculture in our rural communities. And we got talking and so I came up with the idea, but there have actually been groups across Scotland, including one not far from yours, Peterhead, ScotRef Peterhead.
Oh, yes, okay, yes. I know the guys up there, yeah.
Yeah, and they have been instrumental. There were 5 or 6 groups because I thought, okay, if I'm getting this idea together, then because I worked in broadcasting, I know that a good idea works better when it's part of a team. And actually it just, so I was really careful to discuss the concept of the campaign with a number of groups across Scotland. And the leaflet was actually the idea of the people up in Peterhead. But again, we were really careful to write it in such a way that it was neutral. However, I am not neutral. And I've gone from no to yes. Back in 2014, if you had asked me, even in July, what I thought, in fact, I know for a fact what I said because we were over on holiday in Scotland. At the time I lived in Australia. We were overseeing the family and everyone was talking about the campaign. And I really favoured Devo Max and I couldn't vote because I was in Australia and I still wasn't convinced about independence. But one of my former colleagues, in fact, one of my former mentors who helped train me as a journalist, she's just started sending me a load of sourced material because I was missing. In Australia, we got a really sanitized version of the campaign, and she started sending me more information. And by the end of it, I was by the time I went from the OTS about a week before the campaign, before the referendum in 2014. And the biggest thing I was worried about was Europe, because primarily I'm not a nationalist, I'm an internationalist. I believe in self-determination. And I was concerned that Scotland would fare worse being outside the European Union. But in the end, actually, I thought, you know what, it'll be okay, because although I think that a belligerent England would have done everything it could to block us from re-entering the EU, I think eventually we would have done. However, Brexit now means that we can't. We have to make a choice. The status quo is no longer there. And in many respects, I think that actually might mean that Scotland gets a better version of independence and a faster re-accession into the EU because of the way in which England is behaving. So I think that and this is completely separate from the Keep Scotland the Brand campaign, because I do genuinely run that on a neutral basis. And that's the reason why the campaign, that you'll see if you go to the Twitter page, I don't follow anybody to stay, just to keep neutral. I'm really careful about what I share, and I keep it professional. But personally, I think that it has become a matter of life and death for Scotland, literally, to become independent. I think that if we are left on this bitter little rock that has become Brexit land, and if we are led by the charlatans and shysters that would inflict continued harm upon people, and lies and deception, and even at this time of coronavirus, where really party politics should be put to one side, and we are seeing deaths beyond the number of deaths that people would have thought possible or tolerated or tolerable in any way, and the lies and deceptions that we are seeing. And for this to happen with us going into a hard Brexit, as is looking more and more likely, to be where we will be like lambs splayed across some deeply ghastly altar of neoliberalism and neocapitalism gone mad. So I think genuinely that if we want to maintain a rural economy, if we want to maintain the quality of food on our tables, if we want to do anything close to ending food poverty, the horror of food poverty in a country as wealthy as ours, then we have to have independence. And that's got nothing to do with the Keep Scotland the Brand campaign, but it is everything to do with many of my waking minutes. And for the future I want to leave my children, then if we don't have independence now, I fully see that we could end up with the Scottish Parliament being dissolved. Everything that Boris Johnson does leads me to see the way that he dissolved Parliament illegally. Everything he does is anti-democratic. There's very little. I mean, I try not to hyperbolize, because as soon as you start going into absolutes, everything Boris Johnson does is wrong, people will go, but he likes puppies. I don't know. You know what I mean? The evidence I have seen before me is that Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings, I don't know what Dominic Cummings has on him, but my goodness, there must be a really grisly, dirty video of him somewhere, that Dominic Cummings is just, there's a cabal of anti-democratic, deeply worrying cronyism and corruption, which is evidenced. There's an evidence trail for it, and it's there. Why aren't they releasing the Russia report? I mean, it's so easy to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the reality is that we are living through the kind of times that I asked my parents about. And my parents both lived through the 1930s. My father was an Edwardian. He was born in 1920s. They fought in the war. My mum was a youngster and lived through it. And I asked my dad. My dad tells me a story, or used to tell me, he's dead now, but my dad used to tell me a story of going hitchhiking in Norway in 1938. And he and the rest of Europe was on one side of the youth hostel, and the black shirts were on the other side. The Hitler Youth were on the other side. And they spent the whole time singing The Umbrella Man, which was basically about appeasement. And And a year later, the 18-year-old that was my dad was fighting in a war. And I said to him, how come decent people didn't do anything before it came to war? And he said it was like people were sleepwalking into it. And I promised myself then that if ever I was in a situation where, you know, when you're a kid, you're going to go, well, what would I have done? Well, this is it. This is what you would, it's what you are doing now. And if you are not part of a movement to try and bring us towards democracy and justice and dignity and human rights, then you are part of the problem. So, for me, independence can't come soon enough.
Yes, I'd have to say I 100% agree with you there, Ruth, and it's fantastic to see your passion in that respect. Also, I know totally separate to the brand. It's the same for me. I work around food banks and advice centres in the third sector here and also in a rural area of Scotland. So I see the effects of policy and bad policy every single day. And I'm exactly the same as you now. And this is why I'm now getting involved essentially in doing these rallies and standing up and being heard, because enough is enough. And I 100% agree. I think one of the things I would totally agree with you on there is, you know, the answer to that question of your father's was because people were sleepwalking into it, you know, and this is the scary thing. I do foresee that people are sleepwalking right into it again. And if we don't stand up and we don't tell them and we don't say what we think, then we'll just get dragged along with them, unfortunately. You've got to fight, don't you? It's the most important thing we can do. Thank you so much for that. That was really interesting. I've learned quite a lot about Keep Scotland brand myself as well. So thanks for coming on and sharing that with us. And if anything, I hope that will encourage more people to speak up and certainly for more people to protect the brand.
Thank you very much for your time.
Join us next week for part 2 of the Roundtable 1320 Digital Rally, when David Younger will be talking about universal basic income.
This is a new voice for a new Scotland.
And in light on radio.